Well, that certainly was a wild card weekend that was played in the NFL. And I am not too happy by some of the outcomes of these games. So, rather than wasting time doing an intro, let's get right into it, everybody. This is the Sports Ball Network, and this is our NFL Wildcard Round Breakdown. Things kicked off down in the Lone Star State on Saturday as the Houston Texans completely destroyed the Cleveland Browns 45-14. What? Okay. Okay, let's break this one down here because it was a bit of a surprise. CJ Stroud was fantastic, of course. 16 for 21 passing for 274 yards and 3 touchdowns. Devin Singletary on the ground, 66 yards and a touchdown. Nico Collins, a wide receiver, 6 receptions, 96 yards and a touchdown. The defense for Houston, 2 pick sixes back to back, which really broke Cleveland here. Uh, man, Houston was great. Cleveland, not so much. Joe Flacco fell a little bit back down to earth. 307 yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions on the day for him. He took 4 sacks as well. Kareem Hunt only ran for 26 yards and a touchdown. He was the leading rusher for Cleveland. David Njoku was pretty good, all things considered. 7 receptions, 93 yards on the air for him. Amari Cooper only had 4 receptions for 59 yards. The Cleveland defense, the best defense in the league. No sacks, no interceptions, no turnovers. And wow, for Cleveland, this is just a disappointing end to a very promising season otherwise. Uh, as I mentioned before, the defense was not able to really do anything, and that's the main culprit here as to why Cleveland lost this game. Uh, I'm sure, though, Cleveland's going to be back next year. They're very talented. They'll be getting Nick Chubb back from injury, hopefully. Uh, that being said, they do enter the offseason with some questions at quarterback. Are they going to stick with Deshaun Watson or are they going to move forward with Joe Flacco or someone else? Just something to watch there. For Houston, meanwhile, they soar into the divisional rounds. Just fantastic game from them all around. A complete team effort. Really not much to say here other than Houston's playing fantastic football and they are going to be a dangerous out for anyone. Whereas Saturday afternoon kicked off in a nice warm dome down in Houston, Saturday evening was the exact opposite. As the Kansas City Chiefs and Miami Dolphins played in what was the fourth coldest game in NFL history. In fact, it was so cold in Cleveland that Andy Reid's mustache became an icicle. Uh, the results here, unlike the other game, was not surprising. Kansas City took care of business here as expected, 26-7. Patrick Mahomes was fantastic in this game, 262 yards and a touchdown in the air for him. Isaiah Pacheco on the ground was great, 24 carries, 89 yards and a touchdown. Rashee Rice led the way at receiver, 8 receptions, 130 yards and a touchdown. Travis Kelsey, nice bounce back game from him after a rough couple weeks. 7 receptions for 71 yards. The defense had 2 sacks and an interception. Kansas City just played a complete game here and took advantage of the fact that the weather was going to hamstring Miami. Miami, on the other hand, struggled. Tua, 199 yards in the air, a touchdown and an interception. Raheem Mostert, only 33 yards on the ground. Tua was second on the team with 25 on 3 carries. Tyreek Hill in the air, 5 receptions, 62 yards, and Miami's only touchdown. The defense was not able to do anything. No interceptions, no sacks. Kept Patrick Mahomes' jersey quite clean all game long. Uh, this was an expected outcome here. We came in thinking that Kansas City was going to beat Miami, a team that notoriously struggles in the cold weather. And now Kansas City moves on to play Buffalo. More on them a little bit later in the video. For Miami, uh, they have quite a number of questions here going into the offseason. Is Tua the guy? He was great for most of the year, but when it counted most, he struggled. And with a number of top teams in the AFC, uh, that's not going to cut it. The defense obviously has questions too that need to be answered. And now for Miami, they have the unfortunate distinction of having the longest playoff win drought in the NFL. If they don't find some answers fast going into 2024, there are going to be a lot more questions for this team to answer. You know, I find it kind of strange that a lot of Eagles fans, when asked who their biggest rival is, points to Dallas. Uh, I, of course, am an Eagles fan. I've mentioned this on the channel a couple times. But if you were to ask me that question, I would say the Giants are Philadelphia's biggest rival and the team that I personally dislike the most. But then again, I have not seen the Dallas Cowboys succeed in my entire life. So that definitely could be it. And throughout my entire life, the Dallas Cowboys have only won 4 playoff games. And that did not change this past weekend, as the Dallas Cowboys, at home, mind you, a place where they had not lost a game in nearly 2 years until this past Sunday, got utterly humiliated by the Green Bay Packers, a number 7 seed, 48-32. Do not let the score deceive you. This game was not close, and Dallas scored half of their points in garbage time here. Uh, really, there's not much to say here for Green Bay. They had a fantastic game. Jordan Love continues to play at an MVP level, 3 touchdowns and 272 yards in the air for him. Aaron Jones, 118 yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground for him on 21 carries. He always seems to perform against the Dallas Cowboys. Uh, in case you were not watching the game, there was a stat showing on the TV that on average, Aaron Jones is running for around like 120 yards and 2 touchdowns a game against Dallas. Just absolutely insane. Romeo Dobbs, 6 receptions, 151 yards and a touchdown in the air. Luke Musgrave at tight end, 3 receptions, 52 yards and a touchdown as well. The defense, 2 interceptions, 4 sacks, just a great effort for Green Bay. They made history. They are now the only 7 seed to ever win a playoff game in the NFL. They move on to San Francisco, and we'll be covering that game more in our divisional round preview. But Green Bay overall had a flawless game, and they absolutely have a bright future ahead of them. Let's talk about Dallas here. Dak struggled despite what the stat sheet says, 403 yards and 3 touchdowns for him, but 2 costly interceptions and 4 sacks. Tony Pollard on the ground, 56 yards and a touchdown on 15 carries. Not a great day for him. CeeDee Lamb was great, 9 receptions, 110 yards. Michael Gallup had a great day too, 6 receptions, 103 yards. Jake Ferguson had a standout performance, 93 yards and 3 touchdowns on 10 receptions for him. The Dallas defense came up short. No interceptions, no sacks, just absolutely nothing all game long. Honestly, I should have seen this coming. Dallas tends to not perform in the playoffs, but this loss is catastrophic. How do you move on from this, man? I suppose we'll see over the next coming weeks how Dallas moves on and whether or not they fire their coaching staff or make any major changes here. But this is a franchise altering loss. As I mentioned earlier in the breakdown, Dallas has only won 4 playoff games since I've been alive. And honestly, that just says it all. This team really isn't going to go anywhere so long as nothing changes. So we'll see what Jerry Jones does over the coming weeks and if he shakes things up a bit down in Dallas. And to be honest, I expect him to do so. And perhaps even now he's making some phone calls. because I fully expect things to change drastically in Dallas over these next few weeks as a result of this catastrophic disappointment of a game for them. Of course, that take was quickly proven wrong after I recorded it, as it was announced that Jerry Jones has decided to keep Mike McCarthy in at head coach and that the Cowboys are not making any immediate drastic moves as a result of this wildcard loss. They still, of course, could end up reversing that decision or making some sort of drastic moves after the season ends. But it looks like for now, Dallas is staying the course here. So going into 2024, expect much of the same for Dallas as what we got this year. It did not come easy for Detroit. The game was full of stress, anxiety, and stopping moments for Lions fans. But they came out of it the other side a winner. The Detroit Lions, of course, won their first playoff game since 1991, topping the Matthew Stafford led LA Rams 24 to 23 in a game that had a script that Hollywood could not write better. Uh, Stafford gave it his all to try and beat his former team. 367 yards and 2 touchdowns for him. He was fantastic. Kyron Williams, 13 carries for 61 yards. He was great as well. Puka Nakua absolutely torched Detroit's secondary. 9 receptions, 181 yards, and a touchdown for him. Los Angeles' defense, 3 sacks. But for LA, it wasn't enough. And they came out on the short end of things. Still, the team has to be encouraged with the progression of young players such as Kyron and Puka. And those players will absolutely continue to grow going into 2024. The team still has veteran stalwarts like Stafford and Aaron Donald and Cooper Kupp. And with an opportunity to add more talent in free agency and the draft, I fully expect the Rams to continue to progress and continue to play great football well into 2024. For Detroit, this win was a good team win here. Jared Goff, 277 yards and a touchdown in the air. He was pretty good all game long. He did what he needed to do, and he came up clutch right at the end with a key throw to Amon-Ra to seal the game. David Montgomery, 14 carries for 57 yards and a touchdown on the ground for him. Jahmyr Gibbs added 25 more yards and a touchdown on the ground as well. Amon-Ra St. Brown was fantastic. 7 receptions, 110 yards in the air. Josh Reynolds, 5 receptions, 80 yards as well. The defense, 2 sacks. Detroit just wanted this one so bad. You could see it as they played. And now, because they won their first home playoff game and Dallas got upset by the Green Bay Packers, they're going to continue to play in Detroit as they host the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. More on them a little bit later. Next week, in a game that could see Detroit make it to their first NFC Conference Championship game since 1991. That's, of course, if they win. The Buffalo Bills mercifully buried the Pittsburgh Steelers in a mountain of snow on Monday night as they won their rescheduled playoff game 31 to 17. For those who did not know, this game was rescheduled due to the weather, and it didn't really matter. The outcome was still likely going to be the same. Buffalo, led by Josh Allen, had a field day on offense. Josh threw for 203 yards and 3 touchdowns. He ran for another 74 and another score. He's honestly just a delight to watch, and I'm thrilled to see what more he does this season. James Cook, 79 yards on the ground as well. Dalton Kincaid, 3 receptions, 59 yards and a touchdown. Stephon Diggs, 7 receptions, 52 yards and a touchdown. The Buffalo defense, an interception, a sack. Buffalo was a better team here. Expected them to win. And now they get to play Kansas City in the playoffs once more in another Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes classic. Only this time, there's a twist. This one's in Buffalo. For Pittsburgh, Mason Rudolph was their quarterback. 229 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception from him. Jalen Warren led the way on the ground with 38 yards. Najee had 37. Pat Freiermuth, 5 receptions, 76 yards. George Pickens, 5 receptions, 50 yards. The defense without TJ Watt, 2 sacks, was not able to stop Josh Allen at all here. Pittsburgh is a good team overall. They have a lot of talent on both sides of the ball, but they have questions at the most important position. Mason Rudolph ended up starting this game, but there were rumors that Kenny Pickett could come in. Kenny Pickett, obviously, going into his third year, is going to need to show a lot in order for Pittsburgh to feel confident with him as the starter moving forward. Or perhaps he might already be done in Pittsburgh. Could it be Mason Rudolph starting? Or perhaps will Pittsburgh trade up and try and get one of the rookie quarterbacks in this year's draft? A lot of questions at that position for Pittsburgh to answer. But in terms of head coach, they're not going to have any questions. Mike Tomlin did confirm that he is going to be back in 2024. And so long as he's on this team, we are pretty much guaranteed to see Pittsburgh win at least 9 games and somehow sneak into the wild card, as they do every year. Of course, if they're able to solve the quarterback position, that could change and we could see Pittsburgh suddenly dominate the AFC. But until they do so, their ceiling is pretty much this: a wild card appearance, 9 to 10 wins, and a first round exit. And no matter how good of a coach Mike Tomlin is, he's not going to be able to fix that so long as questions remain at the most important position in the game. Just when my expectations could not possibly get lower, they somehow did, as the Philadelphia Eagles embarrassed the greater Philadelphia area, the state of Pennsylvania, and Philadelphia fans everywhere around the world, as they only put up 9 points against the 23rd best defense in the league in Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay, meanwhile, put up 32 points against Philadelphia's 26th ranked defense and only beat the brakes off of Philadelphia to end their season in abject disappointment. Let's talk about Tampa Bay first, because I have quite a few things to say about the Eagles here. Baker Mayfield was great in this game. 337 yards for him and 3 touchdowns in the air. Rashad White ran for 72 yards on the ground. Cade Otton was a star at tight end. 8 receptions, 89 yards. Trey Palmer had a big 56-yard touchdown. David Moore, 2 receptions, 66 yards here as well. The Tampa Bay defense, 3 sacks, held Philadelphia to 9 points. This was a great game by Tampa. They played flawlessly, and it's now them who is going up to Detroit to take on the Lions in the Motor City. Now, let's talk about Philadelphia. Jalen Hurts was fine, 250 yards in the air and a touchdown, but he did not do enough to will this team to a win when they really needed him to. DeAndre Swift only had 10 carries for 34 yards. The fact that the Eagles as a whole only ran the ball 15 times is a travesty. Devonta Smith led the wide receivers, 8 receptions for 148 yards. He was fantastic. I really cannot pin any of the blame on him. But the next best receiver was DeAndre Swift, who only had 32 yards. The Philadelphia defense, which was supposed to be a great unit going into this year, had 4 sacks, but gave up 32 points to the 23rd ranked offense in the league. This is unbelievable to see the season just utterly collapse like this. Philadelphia was 10-1 at one point in this season, and then they lost to teams like the Cardinals and the Giants, and then they fell to 11-6, losing 5 of their last 6 games going into the playoffs. They then, of course, get destroyed by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are not a good team. And going into the offseason, I fully expect a number of changes on the coaching staff and on this team. The offensive and defensive coordinators both are probably going to get fired here. Coach Sirianni could be let go if things fall a certain way. In terms of players, Lane Johnson could be gone. I know he announced that he's likely coming back, but things could change there. Brandon Graham announced he's going on a retirement tour next year, so at least there's that. Fletcher Cox is potentially going to retire. Jason Kelsey's unsure about his future. AJ Brown has gone completely dark on social media and nobody knows what's happening with him. This is an off season where the Philadelphia Eagles are going to need to answer a lot, and something's going to have to change because this season and the way this team played to end the year is absolutely, completely, utterly unacceptable. And much like with Dallas's coaching situation, we got a little bit more clarity on what's going on with Philadelphia after I recorded this part of the video. It was announced on Wednesday that Nick Sirianni is looking to bring in some support on both the offensive and defensive coaching staff, and that right now he is being supported in this process by GM Howie Roseman and owner Jeffrey Lurie. So we are expecting to see a number of coordinator changes in Philadelphia. That being said, Sirianni's job is not entirely safe. There are also reports going around that if he is unable to find coordinators, or if Howie and Jeffrey Lurie do not like the guys that Nick wants to bring in, he could still be let go. So there's a lot of fluidity in this situation, and there's still a ton of moving parts here. Uh, Still, it seems like Philadelphia is going to be making quite a few changes going into 2024. And hopefully, with that, we'll see an entirely different football team in the city of Philadelphia. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching this wild card weekend recap on the Sports Ball Network. If you liked what you saw and if you want to see more of it from us, leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and of course, we'll catch you in the next one.